They brought a predator to class, but the human Deathworlder stole the show when the neural inhibitor failed, unleashing Krook's primal instincts. As panic erupted, Cassia stepped forward, facing the apex predator with calm understanding. Using predator empathy, she mirrored his body language, acknowledging his nature without fear. Astonishingly, the fearsome Vorthak hunter knelt in respect, recognizing a worthy equal. The morning light of Alara III filtered through the transparent dome of the Interstellar Institute of Xenopsychology, casting prismatic patterns across the polished hallways. Hundreds of students from across the galaxy moved through the corridors, some floating, others slithering, many walking on various configurations of limbs. The air hummed with the soft chatter of translator devices, converting dozens of languages into a common galactic standard. Amidst this sea of diversity, Cassia Reyes moved with a distinctive gait that immediately marked her as different. Her bipedal stance was common enough, but there was something in her movements, a controlled precision, an economy of motion, that drew sidelong glances. The subtle shift of weight from heel to toe, the balanced swing of her arms, the upright carriage of her spine, all betrayed her origin. Human Deathworlder. Cassia clutched her battered notebook in one hand and an insulated flask in the other. The flask emitted a rich, earthy aroma that caused several nearby herbivorous species to edge away instinctively. Coffee was, after all, a toxin by most galactic standards. But to Cassia, it was a comforting reminder of Earth, a morning ritual that helped her maintain focus in the sometimes overwhelming alien environment. "Cassia, wait for me!" The voice came from behind, high-pitched and slightly resonant, as if spoken through a crystal. She turned, a smile warming her features as she spotted Draxel Var hurrying toward her. The Crystallian was a sight to behold, a humanoid form composed of interlocking facets that caught the light and scattered it in dazzling rainbows. Currently, those facets were tinged with anxiety, vibrating slightly as Draxel approached. "Morning, Drax," Cassia said, slowing her pace to allow her friend to catch up. "Ready for Professor Kinne's class?" Draxel's crystalline structure emitted a soft, nervous chiming. I heard rumors about today's demonstration. Is it true? Are they really bringing a—" The final word was whispered with such dread that it was barely audible. "Predator?" Cassia took a deliberate sip of her coffee, considering her response carefully. As a telepath, Draxel could sense emotional states, but Cassia had become adept at maintaining a calm mental signature around her sensitive friend. "That's the word going around," she confirmed. "A Vorthak hunter, apparently. Don't worry, they'll have safeguards in place." Draxel's facets paled to a translucent white. "But Vorthaks are apex predators. Their hunting prowess is legendary across 3 sectors. Why would Professor Kinne expose students to such danger?" Cassia gently guided her friend toward Lecture Hall 7, where their Advanced Behavioral Analysis class was scheduled. "It's a xenopsychology program. Drax. Understanding predator psychology is part of the curriculum. But most predator studies use simulations, not live specimens," Draxel protested, his crystalline body chiming with distress. Cassia couldn't suppress a small smile. "Trust me, this will be educational." What she didn't say, what she never said, was how intimately familiar she was with predator psychology. Earth, classified as a Class 12 death world, had shaped humanity through millions of years of evolutionary pressure. While humans presented themselves to the galactic community as peaceful explorers and scholars, they carried within them the instincts of both predator and prey. It was this duality that made humans such fascinating enigmas to xenopsychologists. As they entered the lecture hall, Cassia noted the unusual seating arrangement. The typical amphitheater configuration had been modified, with a transparent containment field separating the demonstration area from the student seating. Security personnel, massive, armored juggernaut beings from a high-gravity world, stood at strategic points around the room. Professor Sintar Kane was already at the podium, 8 tentacles simultaneously manipulating holographic displays. The Octavian professor's skin rippled with patterns of excitement, bright orange spirals chasing each other across his bulbous head. "Fascinating," Kane burbled as students found their seats. "Simply fascinating. Today marks a milestone in xenopsychological education, my esteemed pupils. For the first time in Institute history, we have secured permission to host a live demonstration with one of the galaxy's most accomplished hunters." A murmur swept through the room, excited chirps from the handful of carnivore species present, nervous whistles and clicks from the herbivores who made up the majority of the class. Draxel pressed close to Cassia, seeking reassurance. "Now, I assure you all," Professor Kane continued, his voice modulating to a soothing timbre, "every safety precaution has been implemented. Our guest will be fitted with a neural inhibitor of the highest caliber, rendering aggressive action physically impossible. This is an observational exercise only, designed to enhance your understanding of predator behavioral patterns in a controlled environment." Cassia listened attentively, noting the technical specifications of the neural inhibitor as the professor detailed them. Class 9 restraint technology, supposedly capable of subduing even the most aggressive biological impulses. She had her doubts. Technology often failed to account for the resourcefulness of true predators, but kept her thoughts to herself. "Without further delay," Professor Kane announced, his tentacles gesturing grandly toward the entrance, "I present Krook of Vorthak Prime, Master Hunter of the Obsidian Clade." The doors slid open with a pneumatic hiss, and the atmosphere in the room instantly changed. Students stopped breathing. Crystallians like Draxel vibrated at frequencies nearly painful to the ear. Several gelatinous species began secreting defensive mucus. Krook entered with deliberate steps, each footfall precisely placed. He stood nearly 2.5 meters tall, with a powerfully built frame encased in sleek black armor. His face was partially obscured by a respirator adapted for the Academy's atmosphere, but his eyes were visible, vertical pupils set in amber irises that swept the room with predatory assessment. Most striking were the bands of bioluminescent musculature visible through transparent sections of his armor, pulsing strips of red light that undulated with each movement, revealing the phenomenal strength contained within his form. These light patterns served as both communication and intimidation displays among the Vorthak, a species that had evolved as pack hunters on a world of perpetual twilight. Security personnel approached Krook cautiously, bearing the neural inhibitor, a slim collar of iridescent metal. The Vorthak stood perfectly still as they secured it around his thick neck, though his bioluminescent patterns flashed briefly in what Cassia recognized as a suppressed threat display. "Magnificent specimen," Professor Kane whispered into his microphone, apparently forgetting it was active. Quickly recovering his professional demeanor, he addressed the class. "Krook has graciously agreed to demonstrate hunting techniques using our holographic simulation technology in BioArena 12. Please observe closely. Particular attention should be paid to the coordination between visual tracking and bodily response." The central area of the lecture hall shimmered as holographic projectors activated, creating a detailed facsimile of a dense jungle environment. Within this artificial habitat, glowing forms materialized, prey animals native to Vorthak Prime, programmed to behave according to their natural patterns. Krook moved into the simulation with fluid grace, his massive form somehow becoming nearly invisible as he adopted a hunting posture. The transformation was remarkable. The deliberate, measured movements of his entrance gave way to a predatory stillness that seemed to bend light around him. The class watched, transfixed, as Krook stalked a holographic herbivore through the simulated underbrush. His technique was flawless. Each placement of his 6-digited feet avoided triggering the sound-sensitive prey's alert systems. His breathing synchronized with the ambient sounds of the environment. When he finally struck, it was with such speed that many students gasped in shock. Holographic flesh tore beneath holographic claws, the simulation realistic enough to make several students turn away. From her seat in the back row, Cassia observed with professional interest. Unlike her classmates, she wasn't intimidated. She was analyzing. After several minutes of watching Krook dispatch various holographic prey, she began making quiet observations to Draxel. See that pause before the lunge? Telegraphs his intention. Against a truly alert prey species, that would be problematic. A moment later, he's moving against the simulated wind. In a real environment, his scent would give him away. And then, interesting, he favors his right striking arm, creates a predictable attack pattern. Cassia didn't realize her voice had been gradually increasing in volume until she noticed the nearest students turning to stare at her in disbelief. Even more disconcerting, Krook himself had paused mid-stalk, his amber eyes fixed directly on her. Professor Kanay's voice cut through the sudden silence. Do you have something to contribute, Student Reyes? All eyes turned to Cassia. The human met the professor's gaze calmly, then glanced toward Krook, who remained frozen in an attack posture, luminescent muscles pulsing with heightened intensity. I was merely observing some technical inefficiencies in the hunting approach, Cassia replied, her voice steady. The professor's skin rippled with indignation. Inefficiencies? You presume to critique a master hunter of the obsidian clade? Krook straightened from his crouch, head tilted with what appeared to be curiosity. His bioluminescent patterns shifted to a questioning configuration. The human may speak, he said. His voice a deep rumble processed through his translator. I would hear these observations. Professor Kanay's tentacles writhed with excitement at this unexpected development. Yes, indeed. Please, Student Reyes, share your analysis with the class. Cassia rose from her seat, ignoring Draxel's frantic attempt to pull her back down. She moved to the edge of the containment field, facing Krook directly. Your technique is impressive, she began, maintaining eye contact with the predator. But there are adaptations that would improve efficiency against truly sentient prey. She proceeded to outline her observations, illustrating with precise gestures how minor adjustments could eliminate the telegraphing of intent, how better use of environmental factors would conceal presence, and how varying attack patterns would prevent predictability. As she spoke, a curious change came over the lecture hall. The students, initially horrified at her audacity, began listening with growing fascination. Professor Kanay's tentacles wove complex patterns of academic excitement, and Krook, most surprisingly of all, nodded with what appeared to be grudging respect. Your analysis has merit. Human, the Vorthak acknowledged when she finished. You speak as one who understands the hunt. Remarkable insight, Student Reyes, Professor Kanay exclaimed. This presents an extraordinary opportunity for comparative behavioral study. Would you be willing to participate in a controlled simulation alongside our guest? Perhaps a demonstration of human tracking techniques? Cassia considered the request carefully. This was venturing into territory she typically avoided, displaying the predatory aspects of human capability too overtly could reinforce the Deathworlder stereotype she had worked so hard to transcend. Yet, the academic opportunity was undeniable. I would be willing, she agreed. What parameters did you have in mind, Professor? The Octavian's skin flushed with academic excitement. A modified hunt simulation. Krook will demonstrate Vorthak techniques. Then you will attempt the same scenario using human approaches. We'll collect comparative data on effectiveness, efficiency, and methodology. Before Cassia could respond, Krook interjected. The human should wear a scaled suit, he suggested. bioluminescent patterns pulsing with interest. To approximate fair physical capability. Excellent suggestion, Professor Kane enthused. Our biomechanics lab has prototype enhancement suits that could temporarily augment student Reyes to match Vorthak physical parameters. Would you be amenable, student? Cassia nodded, maintaining her composed exterior while inwardly calculating the risks and benefits of this demonstration. I would be interested in such a comparison. The next 20 minutes passed in a flurry of preparations. While technicians fitted Cassia with a sleek exoskeleton designed to enhance her strength and speed to Vorthak equivalent levels, Professor Kane programmed a new simulation, a complex hunting scenario featuring intelligent prey with defensive capabilities. Students whispered among themselves, placing informal bets on the outcome. Most favored Krook, but a few, particularly those who had worked with Cassia on previous projects, wagered on the human. Draxel hovered anxiously at the edge of the preparation area. Cassia, this is madness. You're deliberately putting yourself in a competitive situation with an apex predator. It's a controlled demonstration, Drax. Cassia reassured him as technicians made final adjustments to her exoskeleton. The neural inhibitor ensures Krook can't actually harm anyone, and this is valuable data for xenopsychological understanding. But why volunteer? Why draw attention to yourself this way? Cassia didn't immediately answer. How could she explain that this was precisely the opportunity she had been waiting for? A chance to demonstrate that humans were more than just the sum of their Deathworld adaptations, that they could understand and integrate with predator psychology rather than merely exemplify it. When both participants were ready, Professor Kane called the class to attention. We will observe two hunting approaches to identical scenarios. First, Krook will demonstrate traditional Vorthak techniques. Then, student Reyes will attempt the same simulation. All data will be recorded for future analysis. Krook entered the simulation first. The holographic environment this time was a rocky plateau intersected by deep ravines, similar to terrain found on Vorthak Prime. The programmed prey were more sophisticated than before. Quadrupedal herbivores with natural armor plating and alarm communication systems, traveling in defensive herds. The Vorthak's performance was masterful. He used the terrain to mask his approach, patience and timing, allowing him to isolate a target from the herd. When he struck, it was with overwhelming force applied to precisely the right vulnerability. The simulation ended with Krook standing triumphant over his holographic kill, bioluminescent patterns pulsing with satisfaction. Professor Kane's tentacles waved enthusiastically. Exemplary technique. Now, student Reyes, the simulation will reset for your attempt. As Cassia moved toward the entrance to the simulation area, a warning klaxon suddenly blared. Red emergency lights pulsed along the walls of the lecture hall. Alert! Neural inhibitor malfunction detected, announced the Institute's security system. Containment protocols engaged. Panic erupted among the students. Several fled toward the exits, while others froze in terror. Professor Kane's skin blanched to a sickly yellow as his tentacles flailed in alarm. "Security personnel to Lecture Hall 7 immediately," he shouted into his communicator. "Evacuate all non-essential personnel." But the security teams were already responding to other emergencies. A power fluctuation had affected multiple systems throughout the Institute. The neural inhibitor wasn't the only technology failing. In the confusion, Cassia made a decision that would later be described as either incredibly brave or suicidally reckless. Instead of retreating, she stepped forward, deactivating the safety locks on her exoskeleton and entering the simulation area where Krook stood. Now uninhibited by artificial restraints, the Vorthak's posture had changed subtly, without the inhibitor dampening his instincts. His predatory nature emerged more fully, bioluminescent patterns pulsing with rapid, aggressive sequences. His amber eyes fixed on Cassia with newfound intensity. "Everyone remain calm," Cassia called out, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I'm going to stabilize the situation." "Student Reyes, exit the containment area immediately," Professor Kane ordered, his voice shrill with panic. Cassia ignored him, focusing entirely on Krook. She deliberately slowed her breathing, adjusting her posture and movements to communicate non-aggression while still maintaining alert readiness. This was no time for flight. Retreat would trigger pursuit in a true predator. Neither was it time for confrontational defense, which would escalate aggression. Instead, she employed what anthropologists on Earth called predator empathy, a technique developed by ancient human hunters who needed to understand the minds of the predators they competed with. She began to mirror Krook's body language subtly, establishing a non-verbal connection while carefully avoiding any movements that might be interpreted as challenge or prey-like behavior. "The inhibitor has malfunctioned," she said directly to Krook, maintaining eye contact, but angling her gaze slightly to avoid a direct challenge stare. "You are unrestrained now. We both know what that means." Krook's bioluminescent patterns flashed with surprise. Clearly, he hadn't expected such direct acknowledgement of the situation. He took a step forward, muscles tensing for action. Cassia didn't retreat. Instead, she shifted her stance slightly, opening her posture in a way that conveyed confidence without aggression. "You could attack," she continued, her voice steady. "Your instincts are telling you to do so, but you are more than your instincts. Krook of Vorthak Prime, you are a sentient being capable of choice." The lecture hall had fallen completely silent. Even those who had been fleeing now stood transfixed, watching the extraordinary interaction unfolding before them. Krook's bioluminescent patterns shifted, cycling through complex sequences that Cassia recognized as indicators of internal conflict. He was wrestling with instinct, his predatory nature warring with his sentient mind. "In hunting, there is honor," Cassia continued, now carefully introducing subtle mimicry of Vorthak bioluminescent patterns through controlled movements of her exoskeleton's illuminated joints. "There is no honor in attacking unarmed academics. You know this. The obsidian clade hunts worthy prey, not frightened students." Something shifted in Krook's demeanor. His posture straightened slightly, bioluminescent patterns stabilizing into a more measured rhythm. When he spoke, his voice was strained but controlled. "You understand the hunt mind," he said, head tilted in assessment. "Few non-Vorthak comprehend." "I come from a world that taught my species to understand predators," Cassia replied. "We had to learn or perish." Krook took another step forward, but the quality of his movement had changed. It was investigative now, not predatory. "You speak truth. I sense the predator kin in you, human. Not prey fear, but hunter knowledge." What happened next astonished everyone watching. Krook, master hunter of the obsidian clade, deliberately knelt before Cassia. He extended his right arm, palm down, a gesture of profound respect among Vorthak hunters, acknowledging an equal or superior. "The human understands," he announced, loud enough for all to hear. "She has mastered the hunt mind without succumbing to it. This is wisdom greater than mere hunting skill." The silence that followed was absolute. Then, gradually, astonished murmurs spread through the lecture hall. Professor Kane's skin rippled with complex patterns of academic excitement as he frantically recorded the interaction. Maintenance technicians arrived moments later with a replacement neural inhibitor. But the tension had already dissolved. Krook allowed the device to be fitted without resistance, his amber eyes never leaving Cassia. "Class dismissed," Professor Kane announced, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. "All students report to designated security areas for processing. Student Reyes, please remain for debriefing." As the students filed out, many cast wondering glances back at Cassia. Draxel lingered at the doorway, crystalline form shimmering with a mixture of relief and disbelief. "I'll catch up with you later, Drax," Cassia called, giving her friend a reassuring smile. When the lecture hall had emptied, except for security personnel, Professor Kane approached Cassia, tentacles weaving patterns of academic excitement. "Extraordinary," he burbled. "Simply extraordinary. Student Reyes, you displayed xenopsychological techniques far beyond curriculum requirements. The application of predator empathy theory, perfectly executed, and the bioluminescent mimicry, ingenious improvisation." "Thank you, Professor," Cassia replied modestly. Earth's evolutionary history gave humans unique insights into predator-prey dynamics. "Indeed," Kane exclaimed. "I must convene an emergency faculty meeting immediately. This demonstration necessitates a complete reassessment of human integration in our xenopsychological programs." Kruk, now securely inhibited once more, stepped forward. "I would speak with a human," he requested. "There is much to discuss between predator kin." Professor Kane hesitated, tentacles twisting with uncertainty. "Perhaps after formal debriefing." "It's all right, Professor," Cassia interjected. "I'd be interested in continuing our discussion." The Octavian reluctantly agreed, instructing security personnel to maintain observation from a respectful distance. As he departed to organize the faculty meeting, Kruk and Cassia found themselves in an unexpected moment of privacy. "You did not fear me," Kruk stated, amber eyes studying her with newfound respect. "Even uninhibited, you recognized my nature without terror." "Fear serves a purpose," Cassia replied, "but understanding serves a greater one. On my world, we have a saying, to know the hunter's heart is to see with the hunter's eyes. You have this sight, human. How did your kind develop such understanding?" Cassia considered her answer carefully. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters on a world filled with dangers. We became apex predators, not through overwhelming strength or speed, but through endurance and intelligence. Yet we retained prey instincts as well, caution, vigilance, cooperation. We understand both sides of the hunt." Kruk's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with contemplation. "A species of dual nature. Fascinating. This explains much about humanity's rapid expansion through the galactic community. We try to emphasize our cooperative traits when interacting with other species," Cassia admitted. "The predatory aspects of our psychology can be unsettling to others." "A mistake," Kruk stated firmly. "Deny your nature, and you deny your strength. The galaxy fears what it does not understand, but understanding begins with truth." Their conversation continued as they walked the now empty corridors of the Institute. Security personnel maintained discreet surveillance, but the initial alarm had faded. Word of the incident spread rapidly through the Institute's communication networks, growing more elaborate with each retelling. A human student had faced down an uninhibited Vorthak hunter using nothing but psychological techniques, and had emerged not just unscathed, but respected. By evening, Cassia found herself the center of unwanted attention. Species that had previously avoided her now approached with cautious curiosity. Several faculty members requested interviews for research purposes. Even the Institute's administrative director, a normally reclusive Quantuvian, sent a formal commendation. Draxel found her in the botany gardens, where she had retreated seeking solitude. The Crystallion's facets sparkled with excitement as he approached. "You're famous!" he exclaimed, settling beside her on a bench overlooking a display of phosphorescent fungi. "Everyone's talking about how you tamed the most dangerous predator in the sector with nothing but words and body language." Cassia sighed, running a hand through her dark hair. "It wasn't about taming, Drax. It was about understanding. There's a difference. Well, whatever you call it, it was incredible." Draxel's crystalline structure chimed with admiration. "And now Professor Kane has called an emergency faculty meeting to discuss reassessing humanity's classification in xenopsychological frameworks. whatever that means. It means, came a resonant voice from behind them, that your friend has challenged fundamental assumptions about species categorization. They turned to find Professor Kane approaching, his skin rippling with academic excitement. Behind him walked 3 other faculty members, representatives from the Institute's governing council. Student Reyes, Kane began formally. The faculty has convened an emergency session to discuss today's events. Your demonstration of advanced predator psychology techniques has prompted significant academic interest. One of the other professors, a towering, insectoid mantidian, stepped forward. We have reviewed the sensor recordings of your interaction with the Vorthak subject. Most intriguing was your application of mimetic bioluminescent signaling through mechanical means. This suggests a sophisticated understanding of Vorthak communication patterns not previously documented in human studies. I've spent time researching Vorthak culture, Cassia explained. Their bioluminescent patterns follow logical structures similar to other predator species' body language. Precisely our conclusion, agreed the 3rd professor. A gelatinous metazoid whose translucent body pulsed with neuroluminescent thought patterns. This indicates a cross-species aptitude for predator empathy that could have profound implications for interspecies diplomacy. Cassia felt a flutter of hope. This was exactly the kind of recognition she had hoped to achieve. Acknowledgement of humanity's unique bridging capacity between predator and prey psychologies. The Council requests your participation in a formal hearing tomorrow, Professor Kane announced. Your insights could fundamentally reshape our approach to predator species integration in academic settings. I would be honored, Cassia replied, maintaining her composure despite her excitement. Will Kruk also be participating? The Vorthak has formally requested to remain at the Institute as a cultural attaché. Kane confirmed, tentacles weaving patterns of amusement. It seems your interaction made quite an impression. After the professors departed, Draxel turned to Cassia with newfound understanding illuminating his crystalline features. This is what you wanted all along, isn't it? A chance to show that humans aren't just Deathworlders to be feared, but potential bridges between different evolutionary types. Cassia smiled, relief evident in her expression. Earth is classified as a Deathworld, Drax. That label follows humans everywhere we go in the galaxy. But today showed that surviving a Deathworld gave us skills that can benefit the entire galactic community. Well, Draxel's facets shimmered with wry humor. Remind me never to play poker with you. You've been planning this strategic revelation all along. Cassia laughed, the sound bright in the quiet garden. Not planning exactly. Let's just say I was prepared for an opportunity, if one presented itself. The next morning, Cassia found herself before the Galactic Council's Education Oversight Committee, which had convened an emergency session in response to the events at the Institute. The chamber was imposing, a vast, circular room with tiered seating accommodating representatives from dozens of member species. At the center stood a holographic projection platform where speakers could present evidence. Kruk was already present when she arrived, his massive form drawing nervous glances from herbivorous council members. The neural inhibitor still encircled his neck, but his posture conveyed dignity rather than restraint. Predatorkin, he greeted her, extending his arm in the Vorthak gesture of respect. Good morning, Kruk, she replied, returning the gesture. Are you ready for this? His bioluminescent patterns pulsed with amusement. Politics is another form of hunting. I will adapt. The hearing began with formal introductions and a review of the incident. Sensor recordings from the lecture hall played on the holographic platform, showing the moment when Cassia had entered the containment area and engaged with the uninhibited Kruk. Murmurs swept through the assembly as they witnessed the extraordinary interaction. Professor Kane presented an academic analysis, his tentacles gesticulating enthusiastically as he explained the significance of Cassia's approach to predator psychology. What we observed was not merely crisis management, but a profound demonstration of cross-species empathetic communication. Student Reyes exhibited an understanding of Vorthak's psychology that challenges our current taxonomic approach to evolutionary categorization. When it was Cassia's turn to address the council, she stepped onto the projection platform with calm confidence. The holographic display shifted to show Earth, a blue-green jewel against the blackness of space. "Distinguished representatives," she began. "Humanity evolved on what you classify as a Class 12 death world. This designation is accurate. Earth is home to thousands of predator species, extreme environmental variations, and natural disasters unknown on most council worlds. To survive such conditions, humans developed unique psychological adaptations." The display shifted to show ancient cave paintings, human hunters pursuing massive prey animals. "We became predators out of necessity," Cassia continued. "But unlike most predator species represented in galactic taxonomy, we retained strong cooperative instincts and empathetic capabilities. This dual nature, predator understanding coupled with cooperative social structures, enabled us to build civilizations despite our harsh environment." She gestured to Kruk, who stepped forward to join her on the platform. "What you witnessed yesterday wasn't an anomaly. It was a demonstration of humanity's potential role in galactic society, as bridges between evolutionary types traditionally considered incompatible." Kruk's deep voice resonated through the chamber. "The human speaks truth. I have hunted across 17 systems, encountered hundreds of species. None have shown the understanding demonstrated by this predator kin. She comprehends the hunt mind without surrendering to it, a balance worthy of respect." A council member, a delicate avian paratsoi, raised a wing-like appendage. "While this demonstration is certainly impressive, it raises troubling questions. If humans possess such innate understanding of predator psychology, doesn't this confirm concerns about their potentially dangerous nature?" Cassia had anticipated this objection. "Understanding is not the same as embodying. A doctor can understand disease without being infectious. Humans have developed our predatory instincts into tools for understanding, not weapons for aggression." "An apt analogy," interjected an elderly Quantuvian counselor, their multifaceted eyes gleaming with interest. "What precisely are you proposing, Student Reyes?" "A new approach to interspecies education," Cassia replied. "The Interstellar Institute currently segregates predator and prey species in most practical training. I propose a program that deliberately bridges this divide, using human mediators as facilitators for cross-evolutionary understanding." Murmurs, some supportive, others skeptical, rippled through the assembly. The council chairperson, a statuesque Lumidian whose photosynthetic skin glowed with internal light, raised a hand for silence. "This proposal merits serious consideration," the chairperson announced. "The demonstration we witnessed suggests possibilities previously unexplored in our educational frameworks. I move that we authorize a pilot program under controlled conditions." The vote was not unanimous, but the majority supported the initiative. By the session's end, the Council had approved the establishment of a Predator-Protector exchange program at the Interstellar Institute, with Cassia and Kruk appointed as its inaugural ambassadors. As they exited the Council chamber, Kruk's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with satisfaction. "Politics," he rumbled. "Not so different from hunting after all." Cassia smiled. "Different terrain, same principles. Understanding your audience, timing your approach, knowing when to strike and when to wait." "You would have made an exceptional Vorthak," Kruk observed. "And you might have made a decent diplomat," she countered. In the weeks that followed, the Predator-Protector exchange took shape. A dedicated wing of the Institute was renovated to accommodate the program, with specialized facilities designed for safe interaction between evolutionary categories previously kept separate. Students from across the spectrum applied for participation, some curious, others skeptical, all intrigued by the possibilities. Cassia found herself working long hours alongside Professor Kane and a newly formed faculty committee. Curriculum had to be developed, safety protocols established, participant assessments created. Kruk contributed valuable insights from the predator perspective, while Draxel volunteered to represent herbivore species concerns. The program's inaugural session was scheduled to coincide with the beginning of the next academic term. On the morning it was to begin, Cassia arrived early to make final preparations. She found Kruk already present in the main lecture hall, adjusting the settings on his neural inhibitor, now modified to allow greater emotional expression while still preventing aggressive action. "Nervous, Predatorkin?" he asked, noting the subtle tension in her posture. "Cautiously optimistic," she replied, setting down her flask of coffee. "Today determines whether my theory translates into practical application." "It will succeed," Kruk stated with predatory certainty. "You have shown the way. Others will follow." The first students began arriving, a diverse group representing 12 species across the evolutionary spectrum. They entered cautiously, herbivores instinctively gravitating toward one side of the room, carnivores toward another. Draxel arrived with several other crystallians, his facets shimmering with nervous excitement. As Cassia observed this automatic segregation, she realized the magnitude of the challenge ahead. Evolutionary instincts ran deep, coded into biology through millions of years of natural selection. Breaking down these barriers would require more than theoretical understanding. It would demand practical demonstration. She stepped to the center of the room, deliberately positioning herself in the neutral space between the divided groups. Kruk joined her, his imposing presence causing a ripple of tension among the herbivore students. "Welcome to the inaugural session of the Predator-Protector Exchange," Cassia began, her voice calm and measured. "You've all chosen to participate in an unprecedented educational experiment. Some of you," she nodded toward the herbivore section, "are here to overcome instinctive fears. Others," she glanced at the carnivore contingent, "seek to channel natural impulses into constructive understanding." She gestured to Kruk, who stepped forward. "My colleague and I represent the bridge between these evolutionary perspectives. As a human from a Deathworld environment, I understand predator psychology. As a Vorthak hunter, who has chosen cooperation over aggression, Kruk demonstrates that biology is not destiny." The tension in the room remained palpable, but curiosity began to overcome instinctive caution. A Theluvian student, a six-limbed herbivore with elaborate sensory antennae, raised a tentative appendage. "Is it true," the student asked, voice quavering slightly, "that you faced an uninhibited Vorthak without weapons or technology?" Before Cassia could respond, Kruk answered. "She faced me with something more powerful than weapons," he stated, bioluminescent patterns pulsing with emphasis. "Understanding, knowledge of the hunt mind that runs deeper than technology." A Carnodon student, a sleek, predatory species with retractable claws, leaned forward with interest. "And this is what we'll learn: how to understand across evolutionary boundaries." "That's our goal," Cassia confirmed. "Not to change your nature, but to transcend its limitations. Predator or prey, we are all sentient beings capable of choice over instinct." As the session progressed, Cassia and Kruk guided the students through exercises designed to gradually desensitize evolutionary reactions. Herbivore students practiced maintaining calm in the presence of predator-typical movements. Carnivore students learned to recognize and manage instinctual hunting responses. By the session's end, the rigid division in the room had softened. Students who had entered maintaining maximum distance from evolutionary others now engaged in cautious conversation, comparing notes and experiences. Watching this tentative integration, Professor Kane approached Cassia, his skin rippling with academic satisfaction. "A promising beginning," he observed. "Though the real test will come with practical field exercises." "One step at a time, Professor," Cassia replied. "Evolution took millions of years to create these divisions. We won't overcome them in a single session. Indeed not, Kane agreed. But what you've initiated here could fundamentally reshape galactic society. If predator and prey species can learn to collaborate, rather than merely coexist, then we create a stronger community. Cassia finished. One that benefits from diverse evolutionary perspectives, rather than being limited by them. As the term progressed, the Predator-Protector exchange garnered increasing attention. Visiting academics arrived to observe sessions. Representatives from worlds traditionally resistant to integration with predator species requested consultation. The Galactic Council's Education Committee commissioned a formal study of the program's methodology. Cassia found herself thrust into a public role she had never anticipated. Interviews, conference presentations, diplomatic meetings. Suddenly, her schedule was filled with commitments beyond teaching. Through it all, Krook remained a steadfast ally, his imposing presence and articulate advocacy lending credibility to the program. 3 months after the program's inception, Cassia sat in her office reviewing student progress reports. A soft chime announced a visitor, and she looked up to see Draxel entering, his crystalline form shimmering with excitement. "Have you seen the news?" he asked without preamble, projecting a holographic display from his central facet. The Galactic Council just announced a major policy revision. The projection showed a council spokesperson announcing a taxonomic reclassification initiative. Species previously categorized solely by evolutionary type would now receive additional classification based on demonstrated cognitive adaptability. The influence of the Interstellar Institute's Predator-Protector exchange program cannot be overstated, the spokesperson was saying. Preliminary results suggest that traditional evolutionary boundaries can be transcended through targeted educational interventions. As such, the Council has approved funding for similar programs at 17 additional academic institutions. Cassia stared at the projection, momentarily speechless. When she had confronted Krook in that lecture hall, she had hoped to challenge perceptions about human capabilities. She had never imagined initiating a galaxy-wide reassessment of species integration. "You've started something remarkable," Draxel said, his voice resonating with pride. "And to think, I once worried about you drawing attention to yourself." Cassia smiled, thinking of how far they had come. Sometimes the most effective way to change perception is to demonstrate alternative possibilities. Words alone rarely overcome evolutionary programming. A message notification pulsed on her desk console. Opening it, she found a formal invitation from the Vorthak High Council, a request for her to visit their homeworld as a cultural ambassador. Such an invitation to a non-predator species was unprecedented in Vorthak history. "Another opportunity," she murmured, already considering the diplomatic implications. A shadow fell across her desk as Krook entered the office, ducking his massive frame through the doorway. His neural inhibitor had been further modified, now a sleek band that allowed full emotional expression while monitoring rather than suppressing his predatory nature. "News travels quickly," he observed, noting the holographic projection still hovering above Cassia's desk. The hunt mind serves well in politics, sensing opportunity, striking at the right moment. "We're not hunting, Krook," Cassia reminded him gently. "We're building." The Vorthak's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with amusement. Different words for the same process. Predatorkin, advancing toward a goal through strategic action. Draxel's crystalline structure chimed with laughter. "You two are more alike than either of you admits." "Perhaps that's the point," Cassia replied thoughtfully. All sentient species, regardless of evolutionary background, share fundamental drives to survive, to understand, to connect. We've just found new ways to express those commonalities. Later that evening, Cassia stood at the observation dome of the Interstellar Institute, gazing out at the jewel-blue expanse of Elara III below. Students of various species mingled in the viewing area, their former evolutionary divisions less evident with each passing week. She sipped from her flask of coffee, its bitter aroma still causing nearby herbivores to wrinkle sensory appendages. Though with more tolerance than before. Small steps, she reminded herself. Evolution took millions of years. Cultural evolution would not happen overnight. Krook joined her at the viewport, his massive form reflected in the transparent barrier. "The Faculty Council has approved your proposal for the field expedition," he informed her. 20 students, 10 predator, 10 prey, will accompany us to the neutral zone for practical training. "Excellent," Cassia nodded. "Controlled environments can only teach so much. Real progress requires real challenges." They stood in companionable silence, predator and prey united in common purpose. Below them, Alara III turned slowly on its axis, its continents and oceans forming ever-changing patterns of light and shadow. Above, the vast expanse of the galaxy stretched into infinity. Countless worlds, countless species, countless possibilities for connection. "When I first arrived here," Cassia said quietly, "a human Deathworlder was a curiosity at best, a potential threat at worst. I had to constantly prove I wasn't dangerous." "And now," Krook prompted, bioluminescent patterns pulsing with interest. Cassia smiled. "Now we're proving that understanding danger is the first step to transcending it, not just for humans, but for all species." As if to illustrate her point, a group of students approached, a mixed cohort of predator and prey species, engaged in animated discussion about next week's practical exercise. They nodded respectfully to Cassia and Krook before continuing on their way, their easy interaction a testament to evolving perspectives. "Progress," Krook observed, satisfaction evident in his bioluminescent patterns. "Just the beginning," Cassia replied, turning from the viewport to face the future they were building. "There's a human saying, 'Understanding is the bridge between strangers.' We've started construction on that bridge. Now we have to ensure it reaches across the galaxy." As she spoke, Cassia poured a measure of her coffee into a ceremonial cup and offered it to a tentacled diplomat who had been observing their exchange with evident interest. The gesture, sharing a human toxin with a non-terrestrial species, had become symbolic of the program's philosophy, acknowledging differences while building connections. Krook adjusted his inhibitor, now more symbol than necessity, and raised his own beverage in a toast. "To bridges," he rumbled, amber eyes gleaming with uncharacteristic warmth. "And to those brave enough to cross them first." Around them, the Interstellar Institute hummed with activity. Students and faculty from across the evolutionary spectrum engaged in the messy, challenging, essential work of understanding across differences. It wasn't perfect, and the path ahead remained complex. But they had proven something profound, that even the deepest evolutionary divides could be bridged through conscious choice and mutual respect. In a galaxy that had long segregated safe from dangerous species, they had created a new possibility, integration based not on denying nature, but on transcending its limitations through understanding. And, in doing so, they had begun to rewrite the story of what was possible when predator and prey chose cooperation over fear. The human Deathworlder had indeed stolen the show, not through dominance or aggression, but through the uniquely human gift of building bridges between worlds previously thought incompatible. In the grand theater of galactic relations, it was perhaps the most surprising plot twist of all.